In today's video, I'll be covering the ultimate guide to switching to keyboard and mouse that will include all of the tips and motivation you'll ever need to improve as quickly as possible. Getting into it, I first want to cover keybinds. The foundation to improving on keyboard and mouse is built on having some solid keybinds. So let's quickly cover the best ones to use. Getting started with movement binds, you'll want to use WASD as it's the most common and easiest to remember. And for your sprinting bind, you can either use left shift or left control depending on which of the two feels the most comfortable to you. Now for our crouch bind, we're going to use the opposite bind that we used for sprint. So if you use left control for sprint, use left shift for crouch and vice versa. Then for your pickup bind, as a beginner, you'll want something simple and easy to remember. Scroll wheel down is perfect here because it's super easy to get the muscle memory down, and that's one less key that you need to worry about pressing on your keyboard. And with that said, for a pickaxe bind, set this to tab as it's very close to your movement binds and therefore really easy for you to remember. And for our 5 weapon slots, the easiest binds to use are 1 through 5 because they're also really easy to remember and typically not hard to reach. Now it's time to cover the most important keybinds, our building keybinds. And before I show you, the most optimal beginner keybinds do require that you have a mouse with at least 2 side mouse buttons like this. It doesn't need to be this mouse, just a simple $15 mouse off Amazon is all you need to get started, and I'll leave links to a couple decent ones below. With that said, for our wall bind, use your back facing mouse button. Then for our floor bind, use Q, super simple to memorize, and it's right beside your pickaxe and movement keys. Then for stairs, we're going to use our second mouse button, this forward facing one, and then finally for cone, set this to E, and then set your edit bind to F, and then click on the second box and then scroll your mouse wheel up, and then head down to reset building edit, click on the first box and then scroll wheel up again, and now you've turned on scroll wheel reset. Having this enabled makes resetting builds so much easier. And then to conclude our keybinds, put your inventory bind on G. Now let's cover sensitivity. A major part in having good aim simply comes down to having a good sensitivity. But how do you find the perfect sensitivity? Well, there are 2 parts to look at when it comes to choosing a sensitivity. The first, your DPI or dots per inch, which is a measurement that determines how quickly or slowly your mouse cursor moves across your screen. The higher the DPI, the more sensitive your mouse is to movement. So for Fortnite specifically, the absolute lowest you'll want to use is 400 DPI. Typically though, you'll want to settle at about 800 DPI as that's the most common DPI that myself and the majority of other players use. The second part, however, will come down to your in-game sensitivity. This part is easier if you have more space to work with. This is why I recommend you have an extended mouse pad so that you can have plenty of mouse room, and more mouse room means more room to experiment. As a rule of thumb, if you can move your mouse from one side to the other and you spin in at least 1 to 2 circles, you're on the right track. However, there's no perfect formula to finding out the exact best sensitivity as it's going to be different for everyone. The most foolproof way is to find a starting point. You can use my sensitivity for that if you want, and then make minor tweaks, test out the sensitivity, make some more tweaks, and then test again, and keep doing this until you feel comfortable with your sensitivity. To test your sense out, you can use Scavox Aim Turner as it has everything you could ever need to practice your aim and test out your new sensitivity. Alright, now let's talk about your keyboard, the brains to the operation, the thing you use to build, edit, and do pretty much everything in game. Finding the perfect keyboard can be a headache, but I'm gonna make it as easy as possible to understand. Firstly, there's 2 types of keyboards, membrane and mechanical. In terms of overall build quality, durability, and aesthetics, mechanical knocks membrane out of the water. Membrane keyboard manufacturers use the cheapest parts, the cheapest plastic, typically made of PVC pipe, which absorbs skin oil, fades the keys, and they overall just don't last a very long time. Now that we've chosen mechanical as your keyboard type, now let's cover keyboard switches. A keyboard switch is a small mechanism you'll find under your keycaps, and these small switches decide the feel of your keyboard. There are 3 main switch types. The first one I'll cover is linear switches. Linear switches are meant to feel as smooth as possible while also being the quietest out of the 3. Then for the second switch type, tactile, these switches feature a small tactile bump that produces a slight click sound when you press each key. This makes them a little louder than linear switches. Then for the third switch type, clicky, are as the name implies clicky, and they also feature a more pronounced tactile bump which makes the signature clicky sound. This makes clicky switches the loudest of the 3 switch types. Now that I've covered keyboard types and switches, now let's cover keyboard sizes. There's 3 main sizes to get familiar with. The first is the 60% keyboard. This is an ultra compact keyboard, and if you need as much mousepad space as possible, this is a great choice. Next up, there's the TKL keyboard. This keyboard is slightly bigger than the 60% keyboard, taking the total key count from 61 keys to 87 keys by reintroducing the arrow function and navigational keys. The main drawback of this size is that you do lose a bit of mouse room, which could be an issue depending on how much space you're working with. Then finally, there's the full-sized keyboard. This is your standard sized 100% keyboard that has all 108 keys. Comparing this keyboard to the 60% keyboard, and you can see just how stark of a difference these two keyboard sizes are. The biggest drawback of this keyboard is the size, as it really hinders mouse space even on large mouse pads. And now I'm going to give you some keyboard recommendations based on each keyboard size. For those who prefer 60%, I have to recommend the RK61. This is a popular, budget-friendly keyboard, and you can get this keyboard in any of the 3 switch types. For TKL recommendations, I recommend my keyboard, the Royale Vulcan TKL. It's really sleek and has some cool features, and it's built like a tank. And the switch types this keyboard comes in are either linear or tactile. It's a bit pricey, but I think it's totally worth it if you have the money to spend. Finally, for full-sized, I suggest the RK918. It's budget-friendly, and you have all 3 switch types to choose from. Also, links to everything I suggest will be right in the description. Now, with that said, let's talk about your mouse, or more specifically, how you hold your mouse. This is known as your grip style. Knowing the proper grip style for you is important because it can help you drastically improve your aim and make playing for longer hours much more comfortable. There's 3 main grip styles that I'll cover. The first is the palm grip. This, put simply, is where you have as much of your hand as possible on your mouse. Then the second grip style is the claw grip. This is where you place your fingers in an arc shape on the triggers of the mouse, and then you have the back end of your palm at the base of the mouse. This grip style allows for a more free-feeling glide, which allows for better accuracy and precision. Then for the third grip style, we have the fingertip grip. This is simply where you have only your fingertips make contact with the mouse. If you find that when you make this grip style that the top of your palm rests on the mouse, that is known as the relaxed fingertip grip. Both styles allow for fluid movement and also allow for better accuracy and precision. Now let me take a couple minutes to give you some motivation and some insight into my progression, so hopefully it inspires you to continue on trying with your progression. To start, let's rewind all the way back to the beginning in Chapter 1, Season 8. Back when I began my switch, it's not like I switched over to a PC instantly, got the most expensive keyboard and mouse. I actually did none of that. I started on a membrane keyboard that I found around my house, and I also had this $5 Walmart mouse that I bought, and to top it off, I played on PS4 on a 40-inch TV. Not exactly the most optimal equipment, but I made it work, and you can too. I promise you'll see results regardless of the setup you have. I know that making the switch sometimes seems impossible, especially when you get killed in the majority of the matches that you play. I know firsthand how demotivating it feels. I know that switching back to controller sometimes seems like the better option, but I promise you it isn't. No matter how much you feel like you aren't improving and never will, improvement isn't a linear process. There's bumps, there's setbacks. Improvement is a roller coaster, and that ride is never a straight track. Making such a big switch takes time, and you only ever fail when you stop trying. And thank you so much for watching until the end. This video took around a month of editing and scripting, so if you found this video useful, a like and subscribe would be so greatly appreciated. Also, please use code Cosmos in the item shop. The money I make from my code goes directly into my channel to make my production quality better with each video. And now I'm off to make some more videos. Bye for now, and good luck with your progression.